Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our July 11th, 2022 meeting, 6 p.m. for the Utility Commission, Fort Valley, Georgia. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thank everyone for taking the time out of the busy schedule to come to our meeting, for our meeting opening. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you get Mayor, would you say the prayer for us, please?
Yes, if you'll bow your head. Father God, we come thanking you for just bringing us here again. Lord, thank you for watching over us throughout the day. We ask that as we conduct the business of the Utility Commission, Lord, that all hearts and mind be open, all hearts and mind be clear, Lord God, that we can leave here, Lord God, knowing that we have done the best business for the constituents of the city of Fort Valley through the Utility Commission. This we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please stand, face the flag, pledge allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on our agenda is approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion that we'll go ahead and approve the agenda for July 11th, 2022.
Have the motion, looking for a second.
I second it.
Motion is second by Lindsay. Thank you so much. Next item, welcome our visitors. Distinguished veteran Sabrina Thorpe, welcome. Would like to, any comments?
Just happy to be here, thank you.
Thank you for attending. All right, next is, I hope we had a chance to look at our minutes, approval of the minutes for our regular meeting on June 13th, 2020, and our work session on July 5th, 2020. Need a motion to approval of the minutes?
Motion.
Have a motion, looking for a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jones, thank you. Next is our activity report, June 2022. Financial overview.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm just going to hit some highlights of the finance department, customer service, and the meter. So if you have any questions, just stop me and ask. So the financial update, we have a new customer service manager, I think we spoke about in the work session, Ms. Natalie Rump, new customer service manager. We kicked off the fiscal year 23 budget. We held a couple of meetings with the operation department, so we are rolling with that. The accounts receivable, I've started including the previous month and then the current month, so you can kind of see how that's moving along and how the payment collection is going. So any questions on any of that? Nope, all right. Customer service department, we posted 5,025 payments. We've got 3,789 customers registered online, which is right at 63% of our total accounts. We took 1,429 transactions through the drive-through. We did 61 arrangements, 52 completed, 9 failed. And we issued a total of 628 service orders. And the meter department is a couple pages over at the very bottom. They completed 516 work orders, and of those, 168 were water rereads.
So we had 168 rereads.
For water meters.
For water.
Just for water meters, yes.
Okay. Was it that much off, or it was just?
That's pretty much every month. Water is a very difficult meter. If it gets wet, if a car's parked over it, then it may not pick up as we ride by, but that is in the budget to replace water meters. We just have to find the time. But yeah, we've been working to get that down, and as the Tantalus system gets deployed, then we'll know certain areas we need to go isolate, and we can put in a new ERT, or we can raise the ERT from the bottom to the top of the lid, and we'll start troubleshooting those soon.
I have another question. It's going to be a couple of pages back from that one.
Yeah.
Back the other way. On our boxes, were, I guess, our payment drop boxes.
Okay, yes, sir.
Notice the numbers are very low.
That's normal.
That's
Mhm.
normal?
That is normal, yes.
Okay.
CEC is really the very active box. The other ones, we don't see much activity there.
And we're keeping them there because we said we would. That's all right, no problem. It was just a question. I just noticed the numbers,
Yeah.
were.
And we do keep a monthly tally of that so that we can add it to our statistics, kind of look back over history. But yes, they are historically low for every area except for the CEC.
Okay, all right.
All these boxes are checked every due date.
We were checking them every day.
Every day.
And once we started seeing these numbers, we started like every 2 weeks for the ones that don't get much usage. But definitely, and actually it's not the due date anymore, we check it the next morning. Now that we allow customers until the next morning to get their payment in the box, since we're closing at 5, we check it the next morning.
So you check them the day after every due date?
Correct, yeah. So if you have a due date, we'll check it in the morning, and then those are entered before the late fees are put on. That way we get any payments that were placed after 5.
If we have one of those boxes that are never used, I don't see the point in keeping it open or having it.
It's a security risk, for sure, for our employees, because the boxes, you have to kneel down on the ground to get into them. And when you're by yourself, you're kneeled down and the customers in the store don't know that it's empty, right? And also, from them being there so long, the store's managers pile stuff in front of them. So it's not like it's readily accessible. You kind of have to dig through some stuff to get there. So.
Okay.
All right, that may be something we have to
Look into.
revisit on, especially dealing with the safety factors of.
And we have
employees.
pictures available of each location, so whenever y'all want to make that discussion happen, we will.
What about we just take the ones that we're not having much activity with and just put them down there, one box down at City Hall, or
Instead of the one at City Hall, or,
just leave the one at City Hall?
Oh, yeah.
And shut all these down?
yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, because City Hall is secured, because you can actually go in the building, and I think you walk into a closet, so you're not in a convenience store checking the box. You're actually in City Hall.
Right. That would be a good option, and let's revisit it, make sure we're making the right decision if we're going to close down.
Yeah.
a
I think the
location.
original intention was when we didn't have credit card payments, we didn't have online payments, so
Right.
customers couldn't call in, they couldn't pay online. So this gave them another option, but, technology has made it to where those aren't as efficient as they once were.
Somebody's got to spend all that time riding around,
They do.
looking at the box,
Yeah.
nothing's in there. I mean,
Like I said, they were doing it every day, and once we started collecting numbers, I was like, let's do it maybe twice a week, and that's only to secure the payment that's in there. I don't want it disappearing. But yeah, we don't do it every day anymore.
All right, thank you.
I got a question
Yeah.
before you go. And I know a whole month passes and then I ask the same
Yeah.
question and then.
Well, I wasn't here last month, so
Yeah,
maybe I didn't.
well, it's been 2 months.
Okay.
But let me ask this, I was just thinking about, adding something under this AR report, talking about, I don't want to create more work, but if you have a summary of the cutoffs, I mean, the 4+ month balance
Right.
keeps growing.
Sure, and I pulled those numbers. Since I wasn't here last meeting, I did get a note that was asked, so I did pull those numbers
Oh,
here.
okay, yeah.
So right now, we have 353 accounts that have a +4 balance. So there's 353 accounts that are over 4 months due. Now, I don't have the total balance of those, I just have the number of accounts. And we currently have 821 accounts pending cutoff, or subject to cutoff.
And these cutoffs are those that are in 1,000+ range.
This is anybody past due. If you're past due, you're subject to disconnect. So we currently have 821. So what we're doing, you have to take it per cycle. And so we just did cycle 4, and we looked at what are the top 4 months. You know what I mean? Who's 4 plus behind? Let's start with that. 1 week we did 10. That 10 created a full day of work, because what you're finding is that person hasn't paid in 2 years. So instead of managing a situation where they owe $200 or $300, they now owe several thousands of dollars, and you're having to work with them and come to a common agreement on that. So the problems that exist are much larger now when we cut somebody off versus if we had been doing it 2 years ago. And then this past week, so that was 2 weeks ago, this past week we were able to cut off 15. We went with the same cycle. So this time, what I did was I looked, they may have had a lower balance, but if they haven't paid in 2 years, then we cut them off. And that a lot of people came in and paid because they were like, oh, I wasn't getting my bill. Well, we didn't know you weren't getting your bill, so they came in and paid. But that's kind of how we're,
That wasn't doing what?
huh?
You weren't
That
getting
wasn't
big.
giving that big.
Right.
So let me ask you this, okay. So I mean, you kind of have 2 sets of cutoffs, right? You have a set of cutoff that's well in arrears, and then you have your typical monthly cutoff. What
Which we
is
can't
y'all's
get to.
Let's say none of this 4 plus existed.
Okay,
Say,
sure.
Say you missed your bill date on the 15th.
Within 3 days.
Huh?
Within 3 days, we're cutting you
You're
off.
cutting it off. Are we
We're not there yet.
cutting, I mean, what I'm worried is the account number is going to grow and we'll never complete this process. And I mean, that's why I want it on this report.
Yeah.
And that's my concern, is that we will not complete, it will continue to grow.
Mine too.
And,
It's a very valid concern.
yes, yes.
And it's been our concern
Right.
all along.
Been our
but-
concern, yeah.
Yeah, but when
Yeah.
you go.
No, I'm not doing anything
Yeah.
new, I'm just,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's a
just feel
valid
like,
point, and you
hey, we
see it in
have
the
to
AR.
Either talk about, I mean, this needs to be a status update, we need to
Yep.
discuss it, and if there's additional resources or processes, I mean, I'm not sitting here like, oh, we need to cut them off because we got to, but from a process standpoint.
Yep,
I
You're not
mean,
getting ahead.
Well, the whole problem is it continues to grow, and we're not
Right.
keeping the current, that's why I sort of think about it in 2 buckets, right? It's like, if we're not maintaining our typical monthly process of cutoffs, because we're, doing this, which one's more important, right? Because this is going to become that if we're not working them down.
And another thing we're facing
Yeah.
during this month, and we'll have this all the way through August, is the heat. So our policy, we can't cut off if it's 98 degrees with a heat index of like 105. It's either 105 or 110, I can't remember. So what we do each day that we're going to cut off, we go to the same website every time. We pull the heat index for the day, we print it, attach it to the cutoff list. But we are facing that issue too. So maybe this Thursday, I don't know, but let's say this Thursday is going
Yeah.
to be the best day because the meter department's not reading, it's not a due date, we can do this, but the heat index is 112. We can't cut off. So then that puts us another week behind. Same thing for the winter.
Yeah.
But right now through August, we'll be facing that
Right.
problem
So
too.
what is the bottleneck? Is it your department or?
Well, staffing, it's both. So you got staffing in the meter to be able to run the cutoffs.
Right.
But then you also have customer service personnel to be able to manage the backlash that comes in.
Sure, yeah,
Because it's not just one call from a customer.
right.
Like, it generates multiple calls.
10 cutoffs can inundate the office for the day.
And
Right.
and him too.
And I'm talking, you'll get people in the lobby
Yeah.
trying to, and bringing other people, and it can seriously just bog down the entire system.
Sure, sure.
I mean, we're willing to do it, and we're doing it. And, and plus, we had a transfer of the customer service manager, so we didn't cut off for a few weeks for
Yeah.
training on that. But even though her first cutoff was very eventful, she was ready the next week. Let's go again. When can we, so
Yeah.
we're all wanting to see improvement.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think we're gonna, it took 2 years to get here.
Right,
I don't have idea of how long it's going to take to solve that problem, but it's not going to be quick because of staffing.
Right. So
Like you would need somebody dedicated
Yeah,
to that, and what we have now, we're maxed out
yeah.
on our current task.
I mean,
And the problem you have with temporary employees, like, so my option would be, let's hire somebody temporary from the temp department for meter, but they can't drive our vehicles. A temp employee, they're not allowed to drive our equipment.
yeah. I mean,
After each, you've got 4 billing cycles. What's the average number of people who have not paid for that cycle? Do you know that?
So for cycle 1, there's 161 pending cutoff. For cycle 2, there's 172. For cycle 3, there's 348.
My God.
For cycle 4, there's 140.
So that's how many people, after their billing cycle ends, have not paid by the pay by 5 day.
Correct.
Cycle
Now, I
one,
ran these numbers the end of June.
cycle one, what's that number again?
161 for cycle 1.
explain to me what the cycles are, I'm sorry.
So, like, depending on where you live in the city,
Yeah.
you
so-
get billed
okay.
on a different time.
I gotcha.
So
Okay,
different
they lump
routes.
Different areas into different
Right,
billing cycles.
right.
I gotcha.
And
And
that
that's just in
just,
one month?
that's in 1 month. We have 4 cycles in 1 month. So we've
Seven,
billed out
4.
4 different times.
But that's the number of possible cutoffs.
That's the current list. So I went back and looked at cycle 1, who's pending cutoff. Cycle 2, who's pending cutoff.
Oh, but that includes all,
Yes.
that's not from the, I guess he's asking from this current
I don't, yeah, I
cycle.
don't have that, like
Just-
from the
just a
current one.
ballpark. Is it
I don't
10, is it 50?
Like who's only like +1?
Yeah.
I don't know that. I don't have that information on who's +1. This is just total for cycle 1. It includes +1, +2,
That's your,
+3.
that total is the 800, right now, there's 821 possible cutoffs. All the numbers she just gave totals to the
They should, it should
821.
total 820.
He's just thinking of a ballpark, how many per month just roughly need current cutoff?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't wanna get all fired up on this topic, but I'm just curious to other commissioners. I mean, do y'all see my sort of concern? I mean, it's not that, it's that it builds, and then what's a very, very small issue of a current cycle cutoff, which is fairly easy to deal with, because we couldn't cut that off in the current cycle, in the current, +5 days, now that's a +2 or +3 or +4, and that's a big deal.
Okay, so cycle 3 is around what day of the month?
It's the third one, 17th? Maybe,
19th.
does that sound right? 19th?
Okay, so my thing is, because I know I'm on cycle 1, so that's the 7th. With the numbers from the beginning to the ending of the month, it's much lower. So I want to know if it's because people have issues during the 15th or the 19th of the month, because that's the highest.
Or it could be the number of accounts on that cycle.
Okay, okay.
That could,
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know
not-
the answer, but that's what it could be.
It might not be the same number of
Customers.
customers in each cycle.
Yeah.
I'm a customer of one of our friendly competitors, Georgia Power, and I can't get my hands wrapped around this. When I get a bill, the bill is from like 3 or 4 days from since the meter was read.
Right.
I get the bill, it's due to be paid in 14 days.
Right.
If you don't pay it in 14 days, you're cut off. Or if they don't get it cut off, you have to pay 5% or something. So what would it take for us to get that discipline with our cutoffs, or can we ever get that discipline? Otherwise, we've got 700 or 800 people that haven't paid, and the number of dollars is getting larger and larger and larger.
They
To
do.
the point where we won't get it.
If we're doing 15 a week, then you're looking at 60 a month. Like I said, right now, we have 353 that are +4, which we should take care of before we get to the current ones, because the expectation that these +4s are going to pay is very slim.
Yeah, I
That's a
know.
great.
Well, if if we hired up people in customer service dedicated to recovering this, we got almost $2.5 million that we've not collected that are due. Those dollars are due. If we had someone dedicated to working these cases, I understand you, 10 or 12 a day just knocks out the whole staffing day.
Yeah,
But we
if we
just
could
can't
get,
keep on doing this. I mean, $2.5 million, we could have bought, how many people could we have hired?
right.
And I'm
No,
not trying to be cold, and
No.
I'm not asking.
No,
I know
and I see that, and I have no problem with that. You know, you would just need to look at the budget as a whole and how you would want to bring those people on as temporary employees of the commission, full-time employees, once they get caught up. Do you have something else
Yeah.
for them to do? I mean, we're ready to train whoever we need to train,
Isn't there
whatever.
a notice on our bill that says if it's not paid by due date, something happens 3 days later?
You're subject to disconnect. We don't give a time.
You're just subject to disconnection. And that's subject to, could be 4 months. Right?
2 years.
I mean, it's hard to believe we got people that haven't paid in 4 months and still have the power, still have the utilities on, and they haven't paid a dime in 4 months.
We've had them 2 years is what we cut off this last week.
You know, there's not another business in Fort Valley that could survive that.
Yes. And some of them are businesses.
So, I don't know what the answer is.
69 of them are businesses. Yeah, I'm game for whatever you guys want to move forward with.
You're all for it.
I mean, Clay, what are your thoughts on the cutoff and personnel?
Well, we've been following your lead.
Okay.
We've been following the procedures that have been given to us and trying to do them as rapidly as possible under those circumstances. It seems to me anything that somebody hasn't paid in a long time should be cut off. I mean,
Yeah.
And because people on a lot of these, they have no intention of paying. You don't know that until they get shut off. Then they come in and say, oh, I have a lease, it's in a different person's name, you know, all kinds of things. Or that person doesn't live there, or that person's deceased. We have a lot of deceased people.
Well, a lot of these 4 months, the COVID may have factored into that. I mean, we haven't cut off in,
2 years.
2 years, so, but still, we're over COVID, or either we're gonna have it forever. So we need to develop something. We're gonna end up, we're gonna have much in arrears as we have in revenue.
Is the commissioners as a whole, I mean, I'd love to hear from each commissioner or Alray if we need to vote on something that, or see where everybody is, but, I mean, I'd like to, I mean, and then it becomes a resource to Clay, and
I got a suggestion. Now, it may be good and it may not be good. If it's possible, I don't know if y'all have time or y'all could make room or where it can be voice activated. These people with these accounts, if it could be a courtesy call, courtesy letter saying, hey, you're delinquent X amount YZ. You need to seek attention by blase date, or you need to come in. No phone calls, you need to actually come in and you need to discuss this account. Verbatim with the customer service manager on what we can do to fix this issue.
We did that in March. We did that to every delinquent account in March. Everybody gets a phone call if they haven't paid their bill by the due date. Now, we don't say, we're going to cut you off, but we can definitely generate a call that says, you're going to be disconnected on Friday if you don't come in.
Right, I know there had been courtesy calls going out, but then again, we try, as Clay mentioned, if the person is deceased and Cousin Joe lives there and Cousin Joe didn't pay the other person's phone bill, he might not be getting the call, or he may not be answering the call.
Yep.
That turns into one of those things that I've seen happen in our bills that are so far in arrears belonging to someone else. And So that's, you know, we have to look at it. We may have to bring that to a real healthy discussion
Yeah.
on what we need to do moving forward. You know, I wouldn't want to haphazardly take a vote and we
No,
haven't
well,
thought
yeah,
it through.
yeah,
You know,
but-
we need to put our finance folks in action to help us, you know, make the best decision to recoup the monies and retain our customers as well. We don't want to just cut them off and they never come back on.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, in my opinion, is we're not gonna, I mean, we're definitely not gonna collect that money. I mean, maybe a portion of it, some of it. But I guess what I'm, and I understand we're in this hole, understand how we got in this hole. It's not as important now, but what I'm most concerned about is the current losses that we take on each month from not being able to cut off the current cycle's accounts and have the growing problem. So, I mean.
And what you'll
I mean-
also see is, as I send people to, not me, as the commission runs the packet for the collections, I've added that number at the bottom, because you'll see those start rolling off of the +4. So customers that we're cutting off now, those balances will be sent to collections in 90 days. You know, so you'll see those numbers increase as we start moving forward, and I start sending these +4s to collections.
And we don't need that to happen either, because we losing money to the collection, because they get 30%.
This is not, customers who don't pay for a long period of time, I think that condition is not too far from theft of services. I think that is a charge that can be made. And I don't, again, I'm not trying to be
Right.
rigid or cold about it, but my goodness, 2.4 million, 2.5 million is sort of alarming, you know. Pretty
It
soon,
is.
we're talking about real money.
And it's
here.
growing, you see that
Yeah.
+4.
It might turn into real money, you're right.
Growing.
I guess, let me have this asked before, I'd like to have this on the agenda next month to continue this conversation. And then I guess my request of y'all is I'd like to have a rough estimate of what the monthly value of losses would, I mean, just a rough estimate, hey, this many accounts each month get
Added to the
sent-
monthly.
Or how many accounts per month and the value of those that are potential cutoffs, because I think that would give us a rough estimate
Yeah.
of what our sort of current monthly losses would be. Now, of course, some people forget, I mean, it's a rough, very rough estimate.
Right, no, not a problem.
And then, you know, some type of budget, personnel, whether that's temporary or full-time, you know, because, you know,
Absolutely. We'll have that ready.
That
because, I
sounds
mean, if
good.
we're losing money here, I mean, if that current, and that's why I want that sort of monthly value, because if that's one person in each department and it's being paid from stopping losses here, then,
Right.
I'm not saying one person solves the problem, but maybe it's, you
If
know,
they're dedicated to that, it
one
definitely
you know,
helps.
one full-time and 2 temps or whatever. I mean, that's, I don't want to get into the,
Logistics, yeah, we'll
yeah,
have
I
that
mean,
ready
that's
for you.
y'all's expertise, but you know the office and you know the field, and, you know, I think, and I think we need some kind of timeline, you know, a budget and a timeline. Can we, with what budget could we get this done in 6 months, and what, you know?
Right.
We can definitely give you a timeline on how long we think it's gonna take.
Yeah.
And when, and
And the
how many
additional
accounts,
resources.
how many accounts we're going through.
Yeah.
Well, these accounts receivable, those amounts are skewed somewhat, I would think, because current is 1.4 million. That's not
Mm-hmm. Right,
due.
yeah, you would just add the
So you're gonna
+1 to
get- You're going
+4.
to get a real large percentage of that 1.38 million,
Hopefully, yeah.
hopefully. And then each one of those, I meant, when you go down to 1 month, it's 166,000. You're probably going to get some of that from good customers. I mean, this 2.48 million is skewed somewhat because almost a third of that you're going to get anyway, just by due date.
And if you look at the 630 compared to the 530, and you look at the +1, the +2, and the +3, those are actually less than the previous month. So what's happening is those accounts that aren't paying, they're now rolling down to the +4.
To the bottom, yeah.
Yep, and the word's out. I know we were cutting off, and we probably had 2 customers cut off, and people were calling. I don't know how they know so quick, but I think us cutting off
And-
generates other people's to come in and pay.
And there are people coming in and paying
Yeah.
that owed quite a bit,
Yeah,
and that is happening.
yeah. I just think we got, I mean, I just, you know.
Yeah, we'll
I mean,
have
if
a-
the
You wanna know how
commissioners
long
feel
it'll take.
differently, that's fine, but this
Yeah.
just seems like a,
Well,
Yeah.
we'll get something put on our agenda and something the team can look at.
Yeah, we'll
of
have your proposed
How we can
plan.
come together to collect our monies, retain our customers, but also bring a means to an end of what we have here. You know, we kind of got a juggling that going on here.
we're here, we didn't get here overnight, but
No,
we gotta
but-
have,
but
we
we
gotta have
got-
a plan, and if it needs more resources or whatever,
Yeah.
because, I mean, y'all are wasting time and energy and additional, I mean, and other employee resources on, you know, but if we're not making up ground, it's just gonna get worse.
We'll come up with a plan.
Yeah.
I want to say one thing to correct any misunderstanding that may occur. I said I was a customer of our competitor, and I am. I'm also a customer of Fort Valley Utility Commission. I don't want somebody to think I'm not a customer.
Noted.
We got to know that you are a FVUC customer also. I'll write that down.
Please do.
Any other
Make it
questions
part
on
of the
the
minutes.
financials?
Anything else for Ms. Kathy? Thank you so much. Next item, old business, none. Our new business.
We're still in operations.
Operations. Kathy had the floor for so long.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
So the electric department, we had 6 substation events, 4 blinks, and 2 lockouts. Most of those occurred during the significant storms that we had both on 6/15 and 6/21 in June. That did require most of our crews to be out most of the night restoring the power as quickly and safely as we possibly could. The electric department also responded to 93 locate requests and 69 different hyperweb work orders. Our telecommunications department installed 1 new fiber service, installed 1 new wireless service, upgraded 1 service to a faster speed. They had 3 separate trouble calls, and currently there is a contractor out there fixing some fiber bins out there for us as well. The gas department, we had 11 external corrosion control readings, 10 odorization readings, 17 work orders were completed. They include 9 investigations of repairs or leaky pipe, 3 killed services, 3 miscellaneous customer service requests. We changed out 1 meter, investigated 1 stop meter, and they also had 206 locates last month. Any questions concerning electric, telecom, or gas?
Any questions for Mr. Robert Johns? First names. No questions? Thank you.
And for the water department, we had 13 new services, repaired 17 leaks. There was a hyperweb class for everybody, performed 201 locates, and everybody's been working on the budget. We pumped 56.4 million gallons of water. On the wastewater department, we finished cleaning up the temporary belt press that was removing solids, and that job has been done. We pressure cleaned about half a mile of sewer main, answered a few sewer callbacks, videoed 1,600 feet of sewer main, mostly for the I&I project, and we sent 533,000 pounds to the landfill, and that was part of that belt pressing that we had. The wet test was completed, and we did pass 100%, so all of our fish lived. DMRQA was completed, and we pumped 28.828 million gallons of wastewater. And that was it. Any questions?
Just a comment on the wet test. My background is in water, as you know. A lot of people may not know what the wet test implies or shows, it might be good just to say what that is.
That's a whole effluent test, and they take, we send a lab a whole bunch of our wastewater straight from the plant, and they take it and they divide it up into different parcels and percentages they add with fresh water, and they go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, they go all the way up to 90% of the wastewater, and they raise fish in it, and they raise two types of fish in it. The one fish has to grow, and not die, but grow, and the other one has to multiply, have young. And we did 100%, so our fish grew and our fish multiplied.
These fish you're talking about are microscopic size?
They're pretty small.
Pretty small.
They're pretty small fish. And I don't want to massacre the name, because one's Eschruda and Daphnia, or, I'm not real good at those fish names.
And the DMRQA study, can you elaborate on that for a second?
The EPD does a study of our water, and they test for things that are not regulated. And over time, they decide to regulate more things and become more stringent. And they did a study on us, and they try to always improve the environment and find ways to go forward and find other pollutants and ways to get out, and they are tightening our regulations.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next one. Old business, no old business, and our new business. Fiscal year annual comprehensive financial report. This big book we just got. Be our auditors, to keep us out of jail, people.
That's right. Y'all keep yourselves out, right? Thank y'all for having us. My name is Danielle George, and this is Heath Spears, and we were Butler, Williams, and Weich. And thanks for having us. You have the comprehensive, it's called Annual Comprehensive Financial Report now. This was for September 30, 2021. And I'll briefly go through this because I don't want y'all's eyes to glass over, but to go ahead and just let y'all know, y'all passed. It was a great audit. If you turn to page 1 of this book, in the very bottom is the opinions paragraph. And it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position. This basically says it's fairly presented. It's the best you can do.
Wait a minute, Danielle, where did you say that was?
The last paragraph where it says opinions on page 1.
Whoa, I'm sorry.
Page 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's the first page after, because this is has all this extra stuff, so it's after the financial positions.
Okay.
So it's this page. It looks, and it's from us. At the top, you'll see Butler, Williams, and Weich. And so that opinion page, when it says it's referred to, it presents fairly, that means you have an unqualified, unmodified opinion, which is the best. That's all. That's the best you can get. We also, because you are a government unit, have 2 more letters. Well, we have 1 more letter because you're a government unit, but then you also had a single audit this year, so you have another one. So we have 2 more letters that we're going to talk about. At the very end of this book, on page 89, is the other letter that you get, a report that you get. And it's talking about internal control over financial reporting and compliance, because governmental auditing standards require more testing, and it's a harder audit. So y'all are put under a lot of scrutiny. And this letter goes through, and what it does is it tells you if we found any significant deficiencies, or if we found any material weaknesses, or both. And then it also lets you know if we found any compliance or other matters. And in all cases, we did not. We did not find any significant deficiencies nor material weaknesses. So that is another positive. On page 95 and 96 would be where we would put your findings. And as you can see, they say none reported. Okay? And then the other letter on page 90 and 91, that's your single audit letter, and that's uniform guidance. Anytime you have a single audit, and you will have single audit if you spend more than $750,000 in federal awards, and within a year. And the criteria is the $750,000 threshold. And you did this year, and then we have to go through and do, it's almost like another audit, and look at those, find out what's the major program, find out, okay, did you comply on these, there's all this criteria. And again, we found nothing, so yay, that's, pat yourself on the back, we had no findings. And both of those, all three of the letters speak to how well y'all are doing, how well Kathy's doing, how well Mr. Walker's doing. On page 92, you can see the single audit, by the way. You can see the federal awards that were audited under the single audit. So y'all had a million. And if you go through, you'll see on page 93, it just talks about the notes. And on 94 is a summary of everything I just told you. Did you got an unmodified opinion? And then we talked about any material weaknesses, no. Any significant deficiencies, no. Any non-compliance, no. And that's over the financial statements. And that's really, you always will have that section, but then the federal award piece is because y'all had the single audit, a uniform guidance. One of the things that we do is we give those charged with governance a letter at the end of our audit, and it basically is what I just explained to y'all. For a while there, I guess, sometimes auditors don't present. It's not uncommon at all for us not to present, and it's not uncommon for us to present. But those charged with governance were not being told of the situation, and if they had issues or whatever. And so then probably about 10 years ago maybe, this letter came out where we have to give this to you. And if someone presents to you, then you should know everything. You don't really need it, but we have to give it to you. And that's what this is. So there's nothing unusual in here. I would point it out to you. There's nothing in here that says we had trouble with your management. We did not. There's nothing in here saying, well, you had all these findings. There's not. So I present this to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And you're welcome. And do y'all have any questions?
I think all the patting on the back you were implying here doesn't go here, it goes there.
That's right.
It's Kathy.
She is wonderful. We love Kathy. She's very responsive, just so you know. She's very responsive. She gets us what we need. If we have questions, she's able to answer us timely. And so she makes our life easy, and we appreciate it.
Any questions for our auditors? It's Danielle and Steve. Heath.
Okay.
Steve, all right. I remember your face.
That's right.
I remember your face.
I can go by Steve.
Well, we don't need but one Steve right now.
So, well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Kathy. Thank you for keeping us together. Thank you. Bye-bye. Safe travels. All right, Heath. All right, next item, 2020 GFA, sanitary sewer improvements.
I brought this up in the work session, and the bids went out for the sanitary sewer improvements, and the bids were Southeast Pipe Survey was $1,688,546.15. RDJE Incorporated was $2,704,304. Coggins Construction LLC was $2,845,407.85. And Popco Incorporated was $1,717,260.88. The budget for the GFA was $1,173,679.85. So we cut the scope of the job back, and with the lowest bidder for being Southeast Pipe Survey Incorporated, and we are recommending that the bid be awarded to them.
Any questions?
Why were the bids so different?
That's pretty common, really. But with materials as high as they are, they've just been, some of the stuff's been all over the place, and it's really been hard to get contractors to do things right now.
So they may just bid to bid, but pretty
This was-
knew they wasn't gonna do it basically.
Well, we bid this out twice, and the first time we only had one bidder, and when they saw they were the only bidder, I don't know whether they had, it was much higher. Much higher. So,
Any other questions? I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion second.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. All those in favor for the vote to award the bid to Southeast Pipe Survey by show of hands. Any opposed? No opposed.
thank you.
All right, next item, natural gas distribution infrastructure grant.
The Fort Valley Utility Commission Gas Department will be applying for the Natural Gas Distribution Infrastructure Safety and Modernization Grant from the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Material Administration, or FSMA. The purpose of the grant is to repair, rehabilitate, or replace distribution pipelines or to acquire equipment to reduce incidents and fatalities and avoid economic loss. Proposed projects that we will use the grant money for will be the parallel pipeline extension from Culloden to the mega site, finish the steel main replacement as a part of our DENT plan, and regulator station replacement program. The Middle Georgia Regional Commission is assisting us in applying for the grant and requested an RFQ for qualified natural gas engineers. Jack Sapp of Sapp Engineering has the highest qualification score. We're requesting the approval of Jack Sapp of Sapp Engineering as the engineer to work with the Fort Valley Utility Commission to complete preliminary engineering work associated with the Department of Transportation, Natural Gas Distribution Infrastructure and Safety Modernization grant-funded improvements. The funding for the project will be contingent on the award of the grant funding.
Any questions of Mr. Johns?
Where's Culloden to Mega?
It's about
Mega
30
site?
miles.
Huh?
About 30 miles.
The mega site, is that
That's the site on 96 that the state just purchased.
okay. 30 miles.
Any other questions?
So this is just requesting
This is just so
approval to
that,
go get that.
this is the approval for Mr. Sapp to be our preliminary engineer so he can write the engineering reports for the grant proposal.
Anticipation of getting the grant.
Well, to even apply for the grant.
Apply for the grant.
Yes, sir.
So there's no cost.
There's no, Mr. Sapp's already our
You don't
engineer
know?
on file, on
Okay.
hand as it is, and there is no cost associated with it.
No additional cost?
No additional cost. Mr. Sapp has already done 2/3 of the work for us
Right.
as we speak, and was working on the third portion of it.
I'll make that motion to proceed with Mr. Sapp.
Have motion, looking for a second?
I second.
Second, approval of Mr. Sapp Engineering with getting our gas project together for our mega site.
Gonna try to.
All right, motion second, all those in favor by show of hands? All opposed? Same sign. You got the vote? Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And no other items, we have an executive session,
That's correct, for litigation.
litigation, all right?
And you do anticipate there may be some action after the after you come out.
Yes, sir. I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move that.
Motion, for a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor, vote, show of hands. All right, in executive session. Thank you. All right, thank you. We're back live in our public meeting for this July 11th, 2022. And inside of our executive session pertaining to litigation, we are going to move forward with a proposed motion based upon the information provided by MEAG Power staff concerning the tender options discussing decision pertaining to the Vogtle Unit 3 and 4 project, and after consultation with our internal staff concerning the potential benefit and costs associated with the tender option, I hereby move that the City Council, the Utilities Commission of Fort Valley, Georgia, notify MEAG that it does not support exercising the tender option. That's correct? I entertain a motion to that effect.
Motion that we go ahead and move forward.
Motion, looking for a second.
Second.
Second, motion and second, all those in favor?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just so for the benefit of the public, what this vote is the Fort Valley Utility Commission is a participant in the construction of Plant Vogtle. The MEAG has presented the Fort Valley Utility Commission with a proposed option whereby the Fort Valley Utility Commission could defray any cost, further costs at a certain point in the construction of Plant Vogtle in exchange for tendering a portion of its, a percentage of its generation capacity. And based on the motion that was just made and seconded, the Fort Valley Utility Commission is choosing to not engage in or accept the tender option proposal, but rather to continue with financing its portion of the construction cost for Plant Vogtle and maintaining and retaining its generation capacity as it is in the original contract.
All right, thank you. Did we vote? All right.
You can vote now.
All right. All those in favor of the support of this motion, not to support the exercise of tendering the options, by show of hands. Got to vote?
Yes.
Opposed, same sign? No opposers? That's it. I thank you so much. That's all we need for that, Mr. Jones?
It is, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all hearts and minds clear? That concludes this meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.